Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where the Commander Clash crew discusses Commander-related topics, and today we're going to be talking about treasures. Streets of New Capenna just came out, and with it, a new variety of treasures have hit the format, hit Commander as a whole, and it's not the first time we've seen treasures. We've seen treasures a lot in the past, 2 years or so. Definitely ramping up the amount of treasures that we see. And it's definitely a controversial issue in Commander. Some people think treasures are a bit too much. Some people think that it's, really good for the format. So we want to, figure out the nuance behind treasures as a mechanic, if it's relatively good for the format, if it's bad for the format, and all the little things in between. So joining me, as always, is Richard. How's it going, Richard?
Hello, Tomer. It is going well. Very well.
That's great.
I'm about to dunk on some treasures. Let me have them.
Spicy takes today. And then Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive. How's it going?
Doing well, Tomer. How are you?
Doing well.
I'm about to dunk on some treasures.
I
stole Richard's line.
I want Team of Treasures. I'm going to sacrifice them for mana, so I'm really excited about that. And then, generally speaking, we have Krim, also known as the Asian Avenger, as the fourth in the podcast, but he couldn't make it today. So joining in his place is Commander Clash. I wanted to say alumni. You're not alumni, you're a roster. Phil, aka Bruce Kitchen. Welcome, Phil.
Hello. I'm gonna trash some treasures. Yeah. It's just for the protocol.
I'm gonna sack some treasures. How about that? Yay!
Yeah, sure.
Our powers combined, we're going to talk about treasures. So first off, what does the table think about treasures as a whole in Commander? Net good? Net bad for the format? What's your initial opinion before we really dive into the nitty-gritty?
For me, it's fun, but dangerous from a power level. I think we are close to breaking them. But they're fun to play with, I can't deny that. Except for Dockside, and Smothering Tide. But otherwise, they're fun, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, treasures are fine. I think they can do some good things. I think the most powerful treasure cards kind of warp the whole mechanic for me a little bit. I mentioned this earlier when we were talking off cast, but it reminds me a little bit of Modern Horizons 2. Modern Horizons 2, I love the set, and I love Modern Horizons in Modern, but the top end cards are so busted that it kind of turns people off to the entire set, even though there's so many really cool cards that do positive things for Modern. I think treasures are kind of the same way in Commander, where a lot of them are a positive for the format, but then there's this group of cards that's just shows up all the time and is way too busted, and that turns the people off to the entire idea of treasures being a mechanic.
I hard disagree.
Yes.
So when I think of treasures, I think of dredge. I think of rituals. And yes, there is some janky dredge card out there where you can dredge back a 3/3 for value, and no one plays it. And they play the broken ones, right? The ones that instantly win you the game, right? So I think treasures as a concept is flawed. Either they're insanely broken or utterly useless. There's no middle ground. And we have plenty of insanely broken treasure cards, and I need the Wizards marketing person who sold people on treasures, because treasures are basically rituals. Do you want Dark Ritual in the format? Do you want Seething Song? That's what we have nowadays, and everyone is fine with it, which I don't understand why. We don't need to accelerate 1 billion mana and be able to recur it, loop it, save it up. It's somehow better than a ritual. You can do the value turn and then do a combo the next turn by saving. So I think it's actually horrendously broken, and they should remove the mechanic altogether.
Woo!
Oh, remove.
I'm excited. I'm excited for this one. This is going to be a spicy.
I wasn't going to question this.
I'm more with Seth. I think I like a lot of them, but there are a handful that are really, really pushed too much. But I like the mechanic of treasures. Okay, so one thing I like about treasures a lot is that they're not just ramp, right? They're not just generating mana, but they're also artifacts. They also get sacrifice. So it opens up all these cool synergies. So I don't know. For people who don't know what treasures are, basically they're an artifact token that you tap and sacrifice to add 1 colored mana of any color. And a lot of cards lately make treasures as kind of like a side effect. You know, like they make treasures and they do something else. Like Goldspan Dragon is a 4/4 flying dragon that also makes treasures when it attacks and so forth. I like that there's artifact synergies and there's cool things you can do with them, mostly because they're artifacts. And I think it's cooler than just like, oh, I'm a ritual. It's like I'm a ritual, but like you can build around me in
greater
cool,
upside.
expressive ways. like,
Yeah, but interesting
it's more
upside as well.
overpowered. I'm trying to say.
Like, couldn't they support those same
creatively.
synergies in a safer way though? Like blood tokens or clue
Investigate.
tokens. Like
Clue
you get the
tokens,
same you get the same synergies
love
if you want
clue
artifacts.
I love clues as well,
I
yeah.
want clues.
So
Clues
that's-
are
They're not
so
as
fair.
busted.
Pay 2 mana to draw a card is
Yeah,
like
that's-
peak fair magic.
So that's what I was gonna say. Like, Tireless Tracker is my favorite card, and clues are inherently fair, I think, even though they all open up the same synergies, like you get an artifact that you sacrifice, but you have to pay for it. And treasures are the opposite because they pay for other stuff. But I don't think, like, if we remember Ixalan block, except for Pitiless Plunderer, who was missing a non-creature, non-token clause, pretty much all the treasure cards were kind of fair and not even good. But then we go to something like Deadly Dispute, which is just another card that already existed, but now it also creates a treasure. That's a bit can get a bit out of hand, as we saw in Dockside, or I guess Ragavan is broken for a lot of stuff.
I have EDH rec up. We can actually rattle off the existing treasure staples that people play. And then you guys tell me how fair these sound, okay? Smothering Tithe, Dockside Extortionist, Pitiless Plunderer, Storm-Killed Artist, Tireless Provisioner, Revel in Riches, Goldspan Dragon, Brass's Bounty, Deadly Dispute, Ragavan, going down to Hull Breacher, just straight up banned. And then in
Why
the
is
new
it still on
set,
EDH Rec?
on the new set, Professional Facebreaker, Bootlegger Stash, Zia Tora, Agnes, like payoffs, Smuggler Snare, Life Insurance, things that just make oodles and oodles of treasures. So where are these fair cards that you speak? Because anytime I see any one of these cards, you're like, oh my goodness.
No, but
Right? Kill them
Treasure
immediately.
Map, for example,
no,
Treasure
no,
Map
no.
is fair, and it's a pretty good payoff.
Treasure Map is definitive
super
fair
fair.
magic.
Yeah, or Storm the Vault. Or
Okay, there's
like,
one in there. There's one fair one.
A decent amount of those cards are fair. Like Tireless Provisioner's a pretty fair card. Revel in Riches, I would consider
I
a
don't
pretty
even-
fair card. You don't either. Don't think Revel in Riches.
Revel
is
in
fair?
Riches?
I think Revel in Riches is incredibly fair, but Tyler's Provisioner is just like a Lotus Cobra with upside. I don't know.
Oh, wait,
about
you mean
that.
from these
I mean,
cards? I mean, if we
Lotus
just...
Cobra's fine, right?
But
Yeah,
by this logic...
I guess. I don't know. I've been burned by green so many times that I see anything that has landfall on it, and I'm like, nope.
Wait, if we just list off these staples
fair,
and then say, oh, none of these cards are not powerful. I mean, by this logic, we could say Dash is broken because Ragavan has Dash. Obviously, it's not the same, but there are a lot of cards that made
There's
treasures.
one Dash card that works.
I know. I just had Ragavan open here. But there are a lot of Dash... like,
What are the
a lot
unbroken
of-
treasure makers that people play?
They usually don't
so-
play them, but...
Treasure Map?
Treasure Map,
I think Unexpected Woodfall and Strike It Rich are pretty decent in specific decks. And like, if I'm in a red deck that has discard synergies, like I'm running like a Bag of Holding or something, it's really good. They're also really good in like Calamax, where you can copy those spells because you don't have to pay the additional cost. Like Unexpected Windfall and Strike It Rich both say, as an additional cost of casting the spell, you have to discard a card, and then you draw 2 and you make 2 tokens. But in Calamax, if you're copying it, you don't have to discard a card for the copy. So now you're actually going up. You're actually going up in terms of card advantage with it, which is really good, and it makes more treasures. And I like Shiny Impetus. Shiny Impetus is nice.
So if you think about treasures, like it's either a fast mana or a big mana mechanic.
Yeah.
Like that's what it does. And I think that's how you have to evaluate it. Neither one of those things are particularly fair ways to play Magic. But of course, there's like like Tomer hates Hedron Archive. I love Hedron Archive, but that's a thing that makes a bunch of mana, and that's not something that everyone agrees is like super powerful. I think the same is true of the treasure cards. Like, it's a really risky mechanic because every treasure has potential to be broken, because making a lot of mana is one of the most broken things you can do in all of Magic. So I feel like Wizards kind of plays with fire every time they make treasure cards, and I feel like they're playing more and more with fire because now we're getting more and more treasure payoffs, and that makes them even more scary. Like, just being fast mana and big mana is already frightening, but then when you're winning the game with Revel Enriches, or when you're drawing your deck with Professional Facebreaker, and we're getting more and more of these cards that are like, oh, here's your reward for having treasures. Well, we don't need a reward. Our reward is making an endless amount of Lotus Petals and winning the game. We don't need more of a reason to put treasure producers in our deck because they're inherently strong on their own. So I think that's where I tend to get a little worried, is seeing Wizards going further and further down this path and like making treasures better and better set by set.
Academy Manufacturer is the most egregious. Like, as soon as I saw that card, I'm like, why? It's
a pretty fun
every
card,
time you
though.
make a treasure, Academy Manufacturer, a 3-drop artifact. It's an artifact itself, and it makes you a food and a clue. And then whenever you make a food and a clue, you make treasure. And it's like, in what world is that card not like just completely busted?
So there is a way to fix it, and it's to like make it white, like once per turn.
Like smothering.
Like, if you can
Yeah,
make a
once per
treasure
turn.
once
Okay,
per
okay.
turn cycle, you can fix. It's like saying like dredge 1 is the maximum dredge you can do. It's fixed,
Yeah.
and no one will play it, right? Like that'll be that. You need to really lean into Tomer synergies, right? Now, if you have an artifact sacking deck, that one treasure a turn means something to you. But as is, all of these cards are just like, yes, I would like 10 free mana. Yes, right? I don't need any payoffs. I'll just take the mana, right? So you could limit it severely and then force you to have actual artifact or sacrifice synergies. Like, maybe Corvold will still like it, but generic red deck will not go ham on treasures just because, like, why not, right?
Huh. That's actually interesting. Like, would you play a version of Pitiless Plunder? Let's say it was like a 1-drop, and it said, whenever a creature you control dies, make a treasure token. This can only happen once each turn. Or even maybe like a 2-drop. Would you play it?
The only reason people play that is a combo, right? Like,
No,
then
it's
you can't do that
sacrifice
if you
deck.
get it once each turn.
I'd play it in Aristocrats pretty much for sure. If it triggers
Once per turn or
Once
once
per
per turn
turn?
cycle? So
Yeah,
you
that's
do
the
it
question, yeah.
4 times. You
Once
still
per turn.
play it.
This is like the welcoming vampire style, right?
Yeah, I'd play it. If I have like a recurring sacrifice engine, that's at least
Like-
it's fair. Like, Pitiless Plunder is obviously broken, but I'd play the fair
Like,
version.
I think that's fine. If you have to play a sacrifice deck to make it work, great.
Yeah, that's
right? What I
it
don't
would be
like is you
fine,
just
yeah.
throw us in a black deck, wrath the board or something, and you win. Right? Like,
And you can tweak the mana value too. Like, Pitiless Plunder is 4, but like if it was once per turn, I would think it should be like a 2-drop, or a 1-drop.
Oh,
Wait,
wow.
do you, do y'all,
Or maybe two, probably two, probably two, maybe
Do y'all
three.
It's
just-
also pretty wild. Like,
do y'all
imagine
just play
playing.
Pitiless? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, like, I love Jada in every form of Magic, and if it would be a 1-drop, you could curve 1-drop this, then Jada. Oh my lord, would I play this card? But I think they would make it a 3-drop actually.
Do y'all just play Pitiless Plunder for value? Is that a thing people do? Like, the run it out there in Wrath and make treasures? I thought it was like purely a combo / aristocrats card. Interesting.
most people combo.
I
with
had
it,
it in
but I don't
my-
think it'd be terrible as a value
It's still
card.
good, probably.
In Commander Clash, the Armix Iktekik deck had it and it was not a combo piece; it was just a value piece.
It's still good, yeah.
But that was a sack deck still. That was a sacrifice deck.
It was a sack deck, and it was also an artifact deck, so it makes artifacts, which is relevant.
Okay, what do you think of like Magda, where you theoretically combo with dwarves, but not really?
That's fair. Because, like, Magda, like, yes, Magda's an incredibly powerful deck. It's a CDH deck, like, one of the best ones. But, like, you have to be a Magda deck. And, like, I'm okay with, one deck being highly competitive. Like, if you're playing a Magda deck, then you have a high power deck, and that's fine. But you can't just, like, jam Magda into, like, a random red deck and be like, Well, I guess you can.
You can. Until I turn 2, you attack. you ramp
Yeah, but she's still like a 2-1. It's hard to attack with her, like she's a good payoff for your treasures, but like I think she's significantly worse than the 99, I would say. Like
and Magda's kind of restricted by her tribe. Like dwarves are just like if that was an elf card or something, it would be super problematic. But because it cares about like such a underpowered, horrible tribe, but really because it cares about dwarves, it's kind of fine and probably even a good thing because dwarves like could use something kind of powerful to have some shot to be playable in Commander.
You're thinking like
so.
Richard.
I view my.
What a normal person does is like I'll play Dockside, and then with my treasures, I'll play Magda. Then I'll sack the remaining 5 treasures to tutor up an artifact to win the game, right? Like that's it, right? And if I don't have Dockside, I could actually fall back on Plan B, which is just cast Magda and attack, and I might actually get like 5 treasures that way as well, right? So like
she's probably good enough that you don't need other dwarves in the 99 with her, and you just like put her in, and you sacrifice and you win the game. But like I guess payoffs to treasures is kind of lame.
Which artifact do you tutor up to win the game? Like you say, is there a specific one?
I think it's like usually like Aether Flux loops. You grab that.
I mean, if you're playing a Magda deck, you definitely have like Magda combos, but like I don't know. You basically, so if you thought 5 mana was bad, Phil, what if I gave you unlimited mana for any artifact in your deck and a tutor on top of that?
Yeah,
like,
sure.
Surely something bad is gonna happen here, right?
So how do you think of treasures? Like, what do you compare them to? Like they're like something like Dockside Extortion is the problem that it makes treasures, or is the problem that it makes too much mana for its mana cost? Is there a difference between this and Jessica's Will or Mana Guys or something, like, other than the fact that for some reason it's 2 mana, which is obviously absurd, but like is this a treasure problem, or is the problem Wizards is letting cards make way too much mana and that's like not a good thing?
To me, it's Dockside and Smothering Tide are like super egregious because they produce so much treasure. But also the Jewel Thief and Deadly Dispute that are like good cards that also, hey, here's a Lotus Petal. Just with the card, that would be fine. I think treasures are, I don't know, there's 2 types of treasures. The ones that are just staple to cards to make them better, and there's the broken 2 ones. Maybe, what's the Pitiless Plunderer as well. But I kind of don't like the power creeping with treasures, I guess, because Deadly Dispute was usually 2 mana, sacrifice a creature, draw 2 cards, and now it's the same with a treasure staple to it. So I don't like just making cards better with it, and I think in like 2 or 3 sets we probably overdid it, so we only play the versions that make treasures. I don't know. I think these are 2 different things. Like the overabundance of treasures and the, hey, here's also a treasure with your good card. Both of them are kind of sketchy. I do like stuff like Revel in Riches or Treasure Map or something where you have to work for your treasure.
I thought Ixalan was fine. I mean, except for Pitiless Plunderer. Like, what did we get from Ixalan? Ixalan introduced treasures. We got a bunch of cards nobody plays. Brass's Bounty, which makes treasures equal to number of lands, which is a good card. I still think that's a good card in like Gruul decks. And then we got Pitiless Plunderer, which oops a daisy. I think they were very conservative at the beginning, and then they kind of ramped it up a lot. Like by the time we got to like Strixhaven, Stormkiln Artist is kind of like, well, what are you doing? You make a treasure each time you cast Ore Coffee? Why are you doing this? No. And then they're just like, whoa, you think that was good? Well, check out Ragavan. Hey, and then it just like, insanity just like went from there.
And we see that continuing And we see that continuing with the newest set too, with Bootlegger's Stash as a card a lot of people are talking about, and like it's still happening. Like they're still pushing it. Like even like Agnes and Professional Facebreaker, some of the I think top tier treasure cards are coming in Streets of New Capenna, like in the most recent set. And
life insurance.
There isn't any sign of Wizards like slowing down. If anything, they're like snowballing harder towards treasures. It feels like in the set design.
Treasures are just better rituals. Like, imagine you had Burning Tree Emissary, but instead of making 2 mana, it made 10. And then imagine if it didn't drain at the end of your phase, so you can bank it up for next turn. And then imagine if it just randomly synergized with artifacts and sacrificing. Right? Like, it's like so power crept, and like you can save it. Like you can value, like let's say you mana geyser, right? It costs 5 mana, you make some mana, right? But you have to use all that mana, right? With treasures, you can just save that mana because you need it even more, right? You spent 5 mana setting up your combo, you made a bunch of treasures, you can just wait, right? Same with like Smothering Tithe, right? You can just wait, and then in 2 turns minimum you have 6 extra mana. So like it just breaks Magic in fundamental ways. Like you thought Soul Ring was bad, right? Like Soul Ring is just 1 extra mana or 2 extra mana every turn, right? But this is like 8 mana, 10 mana at once, but you can save it for later, right? And that's the problem with treasures, right? Without even thinking about the payoffs. Like, forget if you've cast like a Goldspan Dragon or something, right? Like, you just get to bank up mana. You remember like the storage lands? You know how bad they are? Like, that's how powerful storing up mana is. Like, you can't let people just like sink all their mana and then store it up for 1 combo turn, right? But that's what treasures allow you to do.
They used to put those in precons, in Commander precons back in
like
the day.
Storing up mana is a very powerful thing. Coalition Relic or whatever, right? Like that's a very powerful ability, and now it's just commonplace, right?
Yeah.
That is true. I mean, that is a big part of the power of them. If you had to use the mana right away, it would be a lot worse. Although I think like something like Dockside would still be broken. Like you would still see it comboing off and doing stuff if it just made mana. But I think like a lot of the less busted ones would be way less playable if you had to use the mana right away.
Smelling Tithe wouldn't be playable, I don't think.
Yay! What I'm curious is, like, I draft a lot of New Capenna since release, and Jewel Thief is just insane power creep. It's a 3 mana 3/3 Vigilance Trample, and it creates a treasure token. And I wonder if it would be, like, it would obviously be broken at 2 mana, but it kind of only costs 2. You cannot play it on turn 2, but you play it and you get 1 mana back. And printing, I don't know how this card how did they? I think we are actually heading into, everything creates a treasure now, and that's how we power creep stuff without, I guess they might make a keyword that creates a treasure so they can fit more text on, like, here it's reminder text on what a treasure does. They might just say the card has rich and it creates a treasure when it enters the battlefield, just because they make it so evergreen. Like if they push a common that's already broken this far, I think we're heading in a very bad direction. I don't think Wizards thinks the same as we do. I think they think we just created something amazing here and we have to put it into every set.
I don't even think that's like the best common though. Like Angelic Overseer is existing.
It's so
like,
crazy, yeah.
It just crushes you. It's like, I have a 3 mana 2/1 that draws a card and gives me a life, and then good GG attacking on the ground. I'm just gonna fly over. Whoops a daisy.
But still,
okay.
So go ahead, Tom.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So what I was gonna ask, like, is there any chance that treasures are actually like a positive? Because one thing we complain about a lot on Commander is how busted green is, and how green is the color that gets to ramp the most. Is there is what Wizards is trying to do with treasures is balance things out ramp wise? Is that how Wizards is viewing it? And is there any wisdom to that. Like, is it a good thing that this is allowing every color to have access to some amount of ramp, which hopefully helps those colors keep up with green? Like, Smothering Tide might be a great example of this. We complained a lot about white not getting good ramp, and then Wizards were like, here you go, Smothering Tide, and now white has maybe the best ramp spell in the format. Like, it is like a broken ramp spell. Is it good? Or could it be good if we didn't have the busted ones? Like, could it be a positive?
Sure, if it's not in green. I don't get why. I mean, Jewel Thief is green. Just
yeah, but Jewel Thief's not going to see playing.
No, but it's the most egregious power creep I've ever seen. By far, probably. Maybe Deadly Dispute as well, but God.
I think, like, I'm still on team Treasures is still fine if the card's balanced, but I think the major red flag for me is that I think Mark Rosewater went on record recently saying, like, they didn't like having Treasures in blue, and they moved it away from blue, and they moved it, like, over to green instead. And, like, I would think in 2022 right now, I would say the best ramp colors, it would be number 1 by a mile is green. Number 2, I would say actually is white, because white has really good catch-up ramp. And then maybe black, if you say, like, in the long run, because black has a lot of mana doublers. But I'd say, and red has, like, some ritual effects. Red actually doesn't have that much, I don't think. I would say red needs, like, treasures. Treasures would be kind of nice to give it some ramp. But blue actually doesn't have ramp that I'm aware of. Like, there are some like random side thingies. Like, there's that bad spell shaper that people say is good, but it's actually no, it's bad. And then is that basically it? Yeah, it can make your artifacts a little bit cheaper, which can be mana rocks. But, like,
mana drain is the ramp everyone uses, right? But
great. Yeah, wonderful.
That's situational, right?
So, like, the fact that they would say, like, no, we're actually not going to give blue treasures. We're just going to give it to, like, green instead. That makes me go, huh, maybe this is not what Wizards of the Coast is actually intending to, like, balance out the colors of ramp. Maybe that's not where they're going for at all. And what are they going for? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people refer to it as impulse ramp, right? It's ramp that's temporary, like the impulse draw that red gets. It makes sense, except we don't have, like, a rampant growth that ramps, like, 8 lands in green, right? Like, you know, we don't have a explosive vegetation that continually dumps lands onto the battlefield every player's turn, right? So, you know, if it made one treasure token, fine, but they've seemed to just, like, disregard all of that and given red the ability to storm off and just end the game in, like, one turn, which I don't think is balanced. And I think this is, like, there's so many cards that do this that I think it's by design. Like Hull Breacher, infamously banned now. Like, these cards that just give you access to, like, tons and tons of mana. Like, I think they want that, right? Like, I think this is their fix to rituals or something. Like, maybe they brought back Dark Ritual, make people freak out, but, like, treasures, they're fine, right? Like, this is by mistake? No way, right? Like, so much, like, anyone ever play test this? Like, it makes so much mana. It's so obvious it makes so much mana. It must be what they're going for, right?
Yeah, I think so too. That's what I mean. If they slap it on commons that are already good, they are probably pretty cool with what they're doing. Like, they gotta play test. No, I'm actually not sure if they play test.
But maybe players like them. Like, maybe if you're a casual player, and that's who Wizards obviously going for recently, like, those casual type players, like, I don't know. I don't think Wizards ever wants anyone to be mana screwed, and they don't ever want anyone to run out of cards in hand. Like, everything about modern Magic design kind of screams that. So I think that maybe that's what Wizards going for. I think it is intentional, because I think Wizards wants this to be how new players play Magic, because it feels bad to not be able to cast your spell and be sitting there with 2 lands, and it feels bad to run out of cards in hand. So just everything draws a card, everything makes a treasure, so everyone has, you know, a full hand and all the mana they could ever use, and someone snowballs harder, and that's who wins the game. Like, that seems like what Wizards is trying to do in Commander and in Magic in general, right?
That's actually kind of a good point.
Well, I read one of the Wizards of the Coast designers did like a tweet thread talking about treasures in Capenna and what they were trying to do with it. And they were talking specifically about like limited. And they said that like this is the first tricolor draft environment that they had in a very long time. I think the last one was like Cons. And they said like here's how we mana fixed in Cons block. We have the tri-lands and we have like some of the ramp and stuff. And in Shards, we had like heavy multicolor, and we had the land cyclers as a way to, you know, ditch a big haymaker card, get the land you need at a given time. And this time they said, well, we're another tricolor set. We need to make sure the mana fixing is good. So you play tricolor decks. We're going to establish that this time with treasures. And I talked about like flavorfully, like the set is all about, you know, like 1920s, you know, America, corruptions, mafia, and everything like that. It makes sense flavorfully from an aesthetic choice, treasures, and it makes sense from a limited choice. We want to make sure that limited has the mana fixing to go tricolor. Those are the design goals. They didn't talk about Commander that I saw, or not in the thread that I saw. But I think what their thought process was like, we need our primary objective is make sure limited is good, make sure standard also works, I guess. And then, we need some cards for Commander players. So, we have all these treasure cards. We might as well add some cool treasure cards that will appeal to Commander players. Done, and leave it at that. I don't think they were having like this high design goal for Commander going in. They were just like, well, we need to add something that will make people buy the packs that are Commander players. And so they were just like, some high-powered treasure cards. It's on theme. It's on flavor. We're already doing them, so might as well. And I think that, like, I think it's fine in limited. Like, I like the cons. Yeah, but like when you just throw like a random overpowered treasure card in Commander, then it's kind of like, yikes. You know, like, why does Bootlegger's professional Facebreaker need to be printed? I don't know.
I like the treasure producing part of professional Facebreaker, but the treasure payoff, like Seth mentioned, I think it was Seth mentioned it before, you have an artifact that sacrifices for mana. That's probably enough. These are 3 payoffs already. You don't need another payoff for treasures, yeah. So Facebreaker, first ability is cool. Second ability is... It's kind of wild. I don't know, yeah. But I do have to say that treasures are super fun to play with, and they smooth out limited very good. I'm not really complaining about Jewel Thief as a card. I think it should be uncommon, but this is just a sign for me that Wizards is probably thinking that they do the right thing, which is scary. Yeah. But they are fun. Not as fun as Clues, though.
So, I guess bringing it back to Commander... are we at the point with Capenna that it makes sense for you to start adjusting your deck list to add treasure hate cards? I think that in the community was a topic that people were discussing already. Like, if you go to a random play group now that we have new Capenna cards, do you think treasures are so prominent that you're willing to jam like a Viridian Revel, which says whenever an opponent sacrifices whenever an artifact an opponent controls goes to the graveyard, you get to draw a card. Like, would you run that blind now? What about Stony Silence, which says activated abilities of artifacts cannot be activated, so you can't sacrifice the treasures for mana? Are those cards that you would consider running in your Commander decks now? Because I've never done that before.
I think for me, cards that deal with artifacts go up in value a bit, but I don't know if I want to be like Null Rotting and Stony Silencing, because those cards, I don't know if they hate on treasures, they hate on mana rocks, maybe they hate on some other random artifact with an activated ability or something, but I would be more interested in like making sure I have Vandal Blast in my deck, for example, or making sure I have a Shatterstorm, or the new one that they just printed in one of the Commander precons. It's kind of like 5-mana Shatterstorm that can wrath creatures too. Stuff like that goes up in value for me, but I don't know if I'm to the point where I'm going to be playing Viridian Revel. It seems risky. Like, there are a lot of treasures, but there's going to be times when that card does literally nothing and it doesn't further your game plan and you don't run into a treasure deck or your opponent doesn't draw their dockside or whatever. So I think that's where I'm at, like making sure I have more ways to answer treasures, but ways that are going to be good in most Commander games rather than only be good if someone plays a dockside or if someone has Bootlegger Stash or if someone has some broken treasure card.
Those cards suck. Like you put it out and people just don't use their treasures. Right? And then they remove it and then they combo off and kill you. And that's assuming they even have treasures and you did anything with them. Like they may not have anything and you just basically did not progress your game plan. You spent mana, you spent a card, and you're just down a card in your deck. Like they would need to print like an opposition agent for treasures that you could flash in and somehow like take all the treasures on board or something. You know, it has to be like a Hull Breacher opposition agent type hate card. But like, the answer is just play your own treasures and like pop off before they pop off. Like that's guaranteed to always work, right? If no one else is playing treasures, congrats, you win, right? And you know, like rather than play the hate card for something that may or may not happen, like what's the point, right?
Would you play this card? Because just because you mentioned it, Crafty Cut Purse. It's a 4-mana blue human pirate with flash. 2/2, and it says when it enters the battlefield, each token that would be created under an opponent's control this turn is created under your control instead. Yeah, would you consider this?
At 2 mana, I would maybe, but not at 4 mana. The card is suffering from Ixalan being very underpowered, so if it would, the effect is cool, and it's probably the way I would hate against treasures, because I don't want to play maybe Collector Oof, but not Stony Side, I guess. Nah. Actually, I don't want to hate out my opponents, but stealing their stuff, hell yeah, but not at 4 mana.
It's only a one shot too. If it was like persistent, because it doesn't hate Smothering Tide, right? It doesn't hate like the incremental things. It's also 4 mana. Like if it was a 2 mana 2/2s.
Yeah, it's also only for that turn, right?
Yeah. Why is it not persistent? Like if they'll print
it's excellent
creatures and they'll print Notion Thieves and like
because this gets like creature tokens and things like that, right? Like it's not just treasures, so they don't want you posing that tokens deck over there. I don't know. But
this is also
play a removal spell.
Yeah, this is also in 2020 when they were still being like, maybe we could combat power creep instead of just adding to it. They reversed after a while. Wait, when was Ixalan?
Ixalan was
right before last
2017?
2018. Oh man, yeah, that was when they were like, how about we try scaling back on power?
And then came Eldraine, the very next set.
And then they were like, fire all the way.
Or maybe it was 2, because we had Ravnik in between.
Yeah,
but something you mentioned earlier, Richard, that I thought was interesting is like playing your own treasures to keep up with the people playing treasures. And you just kind of do the treasure war, and whoever does it better wins. Like, you're probably right, but isn't that like one of the problems people have with current Magic and like every format is rather than interacting or whatever, you just try to like out snowball your opponents better? Like, do we want that to be how Commander is? Like, is that a healthy state of the format where it's like, everyone just tries to draw their dockside first or whatever broken card, and I do my thing before you do your thing? Like
his blog, what do you think? I'm like, my opponent plays a Soul Ring. Should I disenchant it or should I play my own Soul Ring? What should I do here? What do you guys think? Like, it's you just
go
pop off first, man.
Yeah.
Or in the case of Dockside, you wait for your opponent to pop off, and then you pop off right after to get their treasures.
That's literally CDH. That's CDH. It's literally just like wait until your opponent pops off and gets shut down, hopefully, and then you go to pop off, and you hopefully win. Oh, that's literally that. Oh, that would make me sad.
So are any of you playing Treasure Hate then? Are you playing Viridian Revel, Tomer, or any of that stuff? Does anything change?
I would run Viridian Revel because it doesn't just hate treasures. It like whenever an artifact dies, and I think like it's a 3-mana enchantment. It sits on the battlefield. It disincentivizes people to use your treasures. So you're already altering their game plan a little bit. And yes, it needs to get removed eventually. But if it just kind of sits around and it draws like a couple cards, I feel like that's kind of decent. Like, I won't put it in all green decks, but I'll start considering it a lot more. But I don't think I'd put any other special hate cards. Like, I'm not going to put like a Stony Silence or whatever, because yeah, it does slow down your opponents, but you just get hated for it. You will be attacked more. Your thing will get removed, and when your thing gets removed, then they do like the dockside, then they do the thing, and then they just win. So I'm more on Team Richard on like, yeah, you just if people are bringing guns to a knife fight, you got to make sure you bring out the bazooka next time, right? Like that's how it is. Unfortunately, it kind of sucks, but like
you bring 18th century armor, and you sit there, and you're like, "I'm reactive. It's working."
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, I think Meridian Revel is a nice way of doing it too, because it's not like actively stopping your opponent's game plan. Your opponents can do whatever they want. Like maybe if they want to still crack treasures into it, it's fine. And it doesn't even ask you to pay the one or anything.
With like his one clue token will be so upset that he's going to tutor up like something to remove this, right? And then the treasure person will pop off. Like you can't play table-wide hate pieces like this. Like,
well, Revel isn't a hate piece. It's just a you do your thing and I'm going to benefit from it a little bit. But you got to do your thing. It's very much like
it will draw the ire of the rest of the table that you're not even trying to like tax, and then they will just unleash and king make.
I'll draw into my removal though. Isn't that better? Like I'm drawing into my removal. I'm not drawing into my removal. I'm drawing into my combo piece so I can dockside win. But let's just say I'm drawing into my removal. How about that? Right?
Like, does anyone play a rest in peace? Do you just like slap a rest in peace on the table just to stop those graveyard decks? Like, does anyone do this?
I played that Planner Void once. It was pretty funny actually, but no, not
the reaction.
Not in general.
Was very funny. I run Rest in Peace in my Zedru deck just because I think it's really funny to gift the graveyard player the Rest in Peace, so they have to watch it on their side of the board because they can't play the
troll
game.
Value.
But that's the kind of a jerk deck though. So, but yeah, what do you think that's going to change your tactics at all, Seth? Like,
as far as the cards I'm putting in my deck,
yeah.
So no, as I said before, like I'm more interested in making sure I get my Vandal Blasts or my Shatter Storms,
right.
but I don't think I'm going to actually play dedicated hate cards. I think they're too narrow. I think they draw too much attention. And the downside of like Stony Silence and that style effect is it also hits on people's mana rock. So you're not just hating on the treasure player, you're kind of hating on everyone. And that's something that's definitely going to get you attacked. Like if it was, if it just hit on the dockside somehow, that would maybe be more appealing. But yeah, I don't think I'm making any drastic changes other than making sure I have mass artifact destruction if I can. And even that doesn't really stop the dockside player from just comboing off. Like a Vandal Blast doesn't really stop the big turn like going off combo, but
the answers are kind of limited. I'm kind of turning more into Crim, where it's like you gotta have more busted answers that are just always good. But
I mean, that's the problem though, because like the way you stop dockside is like Force of Will and like free counter spells, but then you're like, you have this weird playgroup snowball into CDH effects because then other people got to play more powerful stuff to get through your counter spells, and pretty soon you're just power crap the playgroup into CDH territory, which isn't a bad thing if that's what you want to be playing, but like it's easy for that arms race to head that direction, I think.
Do you think like average playgroups, like this is the viewers? I'm genuinely curious. Do you find treasures like being a very dominant keyword that shows up a lot in your groups? Like, how often are your games answered, like determined by like a Dockside Extortionist or a Pitiless Plunderer or a Stormkiln Artist or a Provisioner or a Smothering Tithe? Like, is it just because our meta, like we see tithes so often, we don't really see Extortionists so often? I feel like we've kind of self-regulated that like we will play it every once in a while, but we generally like avoid it from putting it in just like a generic deck. I think I do. Right?
I used to play
is that
it
really a problem
for value,
for us?
but
so looking at the top 100 cards from EDH Rec in the past month, right? So these are probably more than casual players, but Smothering Tithe is in here. I don't know what this number is. Maybe it's like, what is this, 5 in a row, 10, 20 is the top 25, and then top 50, maybe top 40 is Dockside Extortionist. So I think those are the cards that most people see most often. So
how expensive
normal people
are
see
they?
treasures.
Yeah, Tithe is $50. Like,
Yeah,
people
but you have
really
all those people
dreaming
that
that
bought
much?
it when it was like $5, and they've had it forever, and now they play it in every deck.
How much is Dockside?
$65.
Yeah.
They were also both in precon decks in the not that distant future. So I think they're one of those cards that it's not like a Mana Crypt that, like, if you ever want to play Mana Crypt, you had to spend at least $50 or now $150 or whatever it is. Like, these are cards that people just end up with because they picked up the precon at the checkout at Walmart, and now you got a Dockside.
Yeah, but Mana Tithe was just in, I think, Ravnica Allegiance or something. It was just a regular rare, and it was $2.
It was also in the brawl precons because I actually picked up some of the ones that had like Corval in that series. I think it was a Tulane deck. It was in those precons too. Yeah,
it's the third most played white card. Period. Swords, Path, Smothering Tithe. Like, it is very commonly played.
Don't groups kind of self-regulate? I don't want to invoke Rule 0, but like, I don't know. We played it once and then we're like, that's. Actually, we play Smothering Tithe a lot.
We play Smothering Tithe
all the time. Yeah,
I put it on my white decks. What I'm talking about.
Yeah, me too. But is that a bad thing? Like, is Smothering Tithe a bad thing? Like, it helps a color that needed ramp. I know white's gotten way better, but when they printed it like 3 or 4 years ago, was it a positive for the format? Maybe white doesn't need the help now, but at the time, I feel like Smothering Tithe might have been a good thing. And now we have too much of a good thing because Wizards just keeps like going further and further down the path, and like we're getting to that point where there's too many payoffs and too many things. But I don't know. For me, Smothering Tithe, I think in its day was maybe fine. Dockside for me is just like amazingly egregious. So it's like I don't know what Wizards could have possibly thought to print that. Like, what did they think was going to happen? Why would you put a true 2-drop that makes like 10 mana? Like, why?
Yeah, I think they just don't playtest.
Wizards.
I think they must have not playtested Dockside in a actual Commander game. Like, I think they just underestimated that. That doesn't make any sense. Like, whenever it hits the board,
it was a long time ago. But that doesn't stop rules committee from banning it. Now that we know what cards we have to work with, right?
I know they do playtest precons, at least the latest ones, like the 2020 and on.
Amongst themselves or in general?
Yeah, amongst themselves. I don't think in general. Like
they probably don't play Mana Rocks or something. They have some weird WotC meta.
They will stack the top card of their top cards of their library with the newer cards to specifically try them out. I don't know how extensive they go. I'm sure their deadlines are pretty.
I played one game. It's good.
Yeah, they just played one game.
I also think their deadlines are pretty tough because remember back in the day, they had like one precon deck cycle per year, right? Like they had Commander 2015, and that's it. Now they have like freaking like every single set comes with Commander decks, and there's more there's more sets every single year, so it's like, I can't even imagine. Like, how much time do they even have to play test? Like, do they have like 2 days? They're like, all right, we got 2 lunches. You're not going to get paid for this, but like, if you want, you could try out these cards.
I have the definitive answer. Okay, you go EDH Rec Salt Score. Guess what cards are present? Okay,
if it's not Mystic Study, it's
Dockside is above Humility. Okay, it has a Salt Score of 2. Ooh. It's in 106,000 decks. Humility is a Salt Score of 2. It is in 2,000 decks. Smothering Tithe is just right after Blood Moon, a couple spots down. It's in 150,000 decks with a Salt Score of 1.98.
Wow.
So it's above Golos, Omniscience, Ruination, Notion Thief, Mana Drain, Crater Hoof.
That's crazy.
Why is Oko Salt? I want to play more Oko.
Because it kills your commander, and people are very upset about it.
Yeah, but it's so funny.
So the normal person, according to EDH Rec, is salty over Smothering Tithe and Dockside. They are up here. It's right behind Nexus of Fate and Scrambleverse.
Interesting.
So with Smothering Tithe about Emrakul. Interesting. I guess it steals your turn, but it gives you your turn afterwards. Fair.
I think Smothering Tithe actually, I'm always saying they don't playtest cards since Urza and Urza Saga and stuff, but I think with Smothering Tithe, there's a big chance they actually didn't playtest it because it was released in a standard set. I think they didn't playtest it in Commander, and probably there might have been somebody noticing, hey, this could be super broken commander, but it's not like that's going to stop them. They probably thought, oh, that's cool. So they buy the product then. But I think Smothering Tide probably wasn't actually played in any commander game before it was printed, because it's a standard set. And they explicitly say they test for standard. So, yeah. The rest, though, Dockside. No
Honestly,
way they
okay.
tested this.
Let's say Dockside and Smothering Tithe didn't exist, and maybe Bootlegger's Stash. Are we having this conversation? Are we doing this podcast episode? Like, do we hate treasures, or do we hate Dockside and Smothering Tithe? Like, do we hate these two specific cards that happen to have the treasure mechanics stapled on them?
Artist, Pitiless Plunderer.
Yeah,
because those are archetype specific, right? So they have to go in a specific deck, but they're
a little narrower.
In those decks,
they are insane
right?
in the right decks, yeah.
I mean, yeah, like Urza and stuff, but that's fine with me.
Reacher already banned, so we don't need to talk about that one.
What if we took out Smothering Tithe, Dockside Extortionist, Pitiless Plunderer, Stormkill, and Arnest?
That's fine, but then we're back in Ixalan, and we just wait 3 more blocks, and then it's broke. That's what I mean. It's fine, actually fine right now without these cards, but the way it's going, they just can't help themselves. They will print the next Smothering Tide, probably next set. So yeah, it's fun, but knowing Wizards, they might overdo it, and they already do it in commons. So just wait for Mythic Jewel Thief, or it's gonna come. It's gonna be brutal.
Is Facebreaker a mythic or a rare?
It's a rare. I don't think Facebreaker is broken on itself, though. It's pretty fair if you don't have Dockside levels of treasures.
Also, we missed out.
You just hack people with 3 weenies and get 3 treasures.
So we actually kind of goofed here, because there's one card that is missing that is actually should definitely be mentioned. It's the most popular Rakdos commander of all time, despite being relatively new. It's Prosper Tome-Bound, and we just didn't talk about it. But Prosper Tome-Bound, it's a card advantage engine. At the beginning of your end step, you exile the top card of your library. Until your end of your next turn, you can play that card. And whenever you play a card from exile, you create a treasure token. This is ranked 11 as top commander of all time on EDH Rec, and it's the top Rakdos commander of all time on EDH Rec. I would say this card is kind of bananas and too strong. I think I tweeted about it to Gavin Verheyen and Melissa DeTora. They did a retrospective on one of the commander precons, and they said one of the designs going forward as a lesson is they don't want commanders that will both draw you cards and ramp you at the same time. And then I was like, hey, you said that, but what about Prosper? And they said, well, we think it was a mistake in hindsight. But this is another one that is very much up there. It's one of the most popular commanders of all time. It came out, what was it, last year? So, yeah, in a very short amount of time, it kind of went up in popularity.
I've only seen it once when Seth played it, but yeah, it just does it all.
It's in almost every LGS I know, there's at least one person with a Prosper deck. It's super, super up there. But it's also kind of new, so everybody wants to try it out. But
it's also
every
super
single
fun.
treasure card is
It's
very fun, but it's I would say it's too good. It's a commander that, that's 2022 Magic as well, right? Anything that a commander has to both draw you cards and generate mana, or else what are you even doing with your life?
How much of the issue do you think is Commander still being a relatively or comparatively new format? What are we, 10 years now from the first Commander Precon?
10 years, Seth. What kind of newness?
But Magic's been around 30. But Wizards hasn't been designing cards specifically for Commander for that long, and they haven't been designing them at the level they are now for only the last 2 or 3 years, where they're making full draftable sets and Precon decks. Do you think Wizards is just figuring it out as far as how to design cards for Commander that are healthy for the format? How could if it's not that, how could they not know that you should print a Commander that draws cards and ramps? Isn't that
They want to sell cards.
Design 101? Like, how could you miss that? Like, that's obvious. Oh,
You mean the same
what
lesson
are the
they
two
learn
best
every
things in the
set?
format?
Where they're like, if we give you a card that ramps and stabilizes and acts as a finisher, like Uro, what will happen? You know, like they learn this lesson time and time again. They just choose not to listen to it because they want to sell packs, right?
They're also not a monolith. Like, I remember talking to Blake on Twitter, and he was saying like how Hull Breacher is a very fair card. Like, it's fine for the format, actually. This is before it got banned, obviously, but yeah, so you could
Blake
totally
is social
see like
media
people.
guy. I'll give him a pass, but I hope the designers don't think that.
Yeah,
But like,
what's the
it's not
argument
just
for
like
this?
Gavin Verhey. Like, if it was Gavin Verhey and Melissa just making all the Commander products, and they had also infinite time to play test and all that stuff, I'm sure I would be super confident that everything they come out as a banger that's also well designed and super balanced and all that stuff. Like, that would be my dream. But like, we don't know everybody who's designing, and we don't know how much time they have. You know, like, what if you have to just bang out a Commander in a day?
Well, I mean, really, though, truly, that sounds funny, but with the amount of products they make now, that might actually not be a joke. Like, they probably don't have that much time with the amount of products that they got to put out.
Yeah, but we
And
still
then you have
can't
to make
complain
sure it
about
sells
it. It's
packs, right? Like,
saying, oh, they just don't have the time doesn't mean we can't sit here and say, whoa, these are all mistakes and shouldn't happen. It's not like I don't ask for that much product. I would be fine with 2-3 block sets, like 3 set blocks every year. That's it for me. That'd be
but Daddy
fine.
Hasbro's like, number has to go
Gotta
up.
get that moolah.
Number goes up.
It's the
can't
same
go
as
down.
when Wizards made Modern Horizons, right? They're like, look, we're making product for this old format that's been around forever. How do we sell the cards?
Yeah.
Well, we got a power creep. But hopefully in some non-obvious ways, so people don't yell at us. So we'll just rebrand Lotus Petals as treasures or something, right? But they have to sell product. If the cards were mediocre, you would play Smothering Tide for the rest of your life, right? So they have to power creep, augment it, and then reprint Smothering Tide, right? And they will keep milking money. Like, Dockside is not being banned. They're going to put in a secret layer, sell it to you with some new art. They're going to sell the next Commander Legends with it. Like, why would they ban it? It's like the money printer.
Yeah, but people hate it. So I don't know. I guess Wizards at this point is pretty known for not thinking long term. But if you look at the salt score and say, yeah, the most played card and the card that we make our money off is the saltiest cards, in the long run, people will just say, well, I'm just not gonna play this anymore. I guess. I mean, they can see the trick.
I wonder if how many of the people that vote for that is salty actually play it. Like, maybe it's one of those cards that's salty when your opponent's doing it, but when you're the one that's like, oh, blink by Dockside, play my whole deck, like, maybe you're not feeling quite as salty when you're in that position. Do you think we've hit peak treasures? Like, do you think Wizards is going to pull back now? Now that we've had all this stuff, this is a conversation we're having, the community's having. We just got another huge treasure set in Streets of New Capenna. Are you expecting Wizards to start pulling back a little bit? Obviously, this doesn't solve the Dockside problem or the Smothering Tide, whatever problems we have from the past. But in the future, I don't think we'll have zero treasures. But do you think the days of Docksides and Smothering Tides and super pushed over the top stuff is going to come to an end?
I think so. I think treasures are coming to an end. Like, they get the feedback, but the problem is it takes so long for them to actually, you know, like, if they get feedback now, it's still going to be 2 years until we see the cards that were made with the new feedback. And also, from what I understand, like, when card sets are being designed, like, there's teams that are building them simultaneously. So maybe they got the feedback from Ixalan that Ixalan treasures were good, but it was too weak. So a bunch of different teams made different sets of treasures, and they just boosted it. So one team made Kaldheim, one team made New Capenna, one team made the Commander Legends and stuff, and they all made it simultaneously, and they all decided we're going to boost it up, and then they all came together and like, oh, the end result of adding them all together was a bit too much. I think they're going to, like, now they're going to lay off the treasures, but we're still going to see, like, this full year is probably going to still have treasures, and then maybe next year too, but then after that we're going to be off treasures. But I think power-wise, no, we're not going down on power. Like, the ramping is going to just get more, right? Like, these cards don't go away. You just add more to them, and you have to keep selling products. So
We heard your feedback on treasures, so we're introducing soul treasures. You sacrifice them, you add 2 colorless. You add 2 colorless per thing.
let's call the Goldspan Dragon.
Is
There's
brothers?
only 2 fundamental things of Magic, right? That's cards and mana, right? They're gonna creep it. So if they pull back treasures, then wait till you see the new green ramp, right? Like your mana production will go up through the roof, right? Whether it be through treasures, whether it be lands, ramp, rituals, they will power creep it. Just like they power creep card draw, right? Like they will power creep mana production.
And also the feedback that they care about is their bottom line. Like we can give all the feedback we want, but like who cares? They have like 1,000 people yelling different things at them. It's probably noise to them, but the thing that they can clearly see is, oh, well, we printed this and it went up, and we could see on the secondary market how valuable it is. I guess we just keep doing that then, and then it's like, I don't know.
I mean, you just gotta look at the EDH salt list. It's like so incredible to me that all these salty cards, right? They're like played in like 5,000 decks, 4,000 decks, right? Like everyone knows not to play Armageddon, right? Only 9,000 decks. And then you have like Psych Rift, 200,000 decks right up there, right? You have Dockside, right? You have Smothering Tithe in like 150,000 plus decks alongside cards that are played in like 500 decks that are equally salty. Like it is not an indicator like of how widespread they are, yet how salty they are. Like look at Blood Moon, only 25,000 decks.
I actually think that these salt scores kind of because people are super sick of Psych Rift and Dockside, because Humility gotta be a saltier card. That's pretty much as salty as it gets.
Because people don't have to play Humility. So
yeah, that's right. So people
if you
don't
saw Humility in
vote for
150,000 games or decks,
then
you would
it would be
totally rank it up higher.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, you see Psych Rift in most decks, and then like if it's Psych Rift and there's a way to blink your Archaeomancer, I'm just like,
question. Oh, so the Brothers War set, isn't that supposed to be an artifact theme set? I think, was it Brothers War or Dominaria United? So my worry
Brothers
would be
War traditionally would be
So I would be worried that they say So the question is, if they say, hey, you know something that works really well with artifacts, how about we sprinkling some treasures? So
I don't think so. I don't think
treasures don't. It doesn't seem to fit the. I don't know a ton of the lore, but I don't know. I wouldn't think treasures when I think of Brothers War. So maybe we dodge there. I think artifacts, definitely, but maybe they won't be treasures in specific, hopefully.
I mean,
clues
what I'm hoping for
New Capenna, so I don't think
hoping for it's going to be like artifact, and then it's actually an Enchantress set, because the first one was they were doing like Urza's Saga, and they were supposed to be an Enchantress set, and the most busted cards were all artifacts. So I'm hoping for the reversal. It's like Theros 3.0 or something. Yes.
So another treasure question. What do you guys think about banning some of these top treasure cards? Like, should we? And I don't want to get into the whole, like, we have a whole philosophical thing about bannings, like whether or not they should even exist. We did a whole podcast, about that in the past. So 2 whole podcasts, 3 whole podcasts. But like, should Dockside or Smothering Tithe in specific, like, should we just ban them? Are they at that point where they're very salty? We've been talking about that. They're very powerful. Do they warp the game to the extent that they should just go on the ban list?
I wouldn't have a ban list in general, but if I would, Dockside would definitely be on it. Smothering Tide is super oppressive, but at least it's white. So for now, maybe not now, but a few sets ago, white could have needed the help. Dockside for sure, but then again, why isn't Expropriate on the ban list if it's about fun? So the whole ban list thing doesn't make sense to me anyway, so nothing should be banned in my mind. Yeah. But if so, Dockside. Yeah. But only this.
I agree. I think we like, I'm for no ban list, but if you were to have a ban list, why is this card not there? Right? Like, what is the upside? Like, someone explain to me, like, the upside you're removing by banning this. Like, someone plays a Dockside and then plays a Crawworm after? Like, I don't know, like, what the good part of this is, right? It's just all downside and abuse ready. Remember, you can blink it. You can do all sorts of shenanigans, right? It goes in, your stupid Urza Saga token is now like a 50-50, right? Like there's just so much upside to this and for abuse. But like, what is the fun upside? Who's impressed by this? You paid 2 mana, you won the game. Good job, sir.
What if you have a treasure tribal deck and you aren't using the dockside for anything abusive and you just want to...
Yeah, Captain Leonary Storm. You play her and then sacrifice the treasures for commander damage. That would be fine. But
fair and balanced.
Yeah, that's the only case I can think of.
Majority of people don't use it that way, though.
Yeah. It's like the myriad
I don't think
of
I've ever
multiple
seen
broken
that.
mechanics. Like artifacts historically always broken somewhere when you have enough of them.
Yeah.
And then fast mana. And then like little weenies that can blink and block for some reason. Right? It's like a 1/2 for some reason. Like it's just so absurd that it needs to be banned.
So I actually am for a ban list because my goal of a ban list would be kind of like to make sure new players and people who can't have a ban list, like people on Magic Online, people who are in pickup games, people who don't have Rule 0, who don't have a regular play group. I think they need some help, and I want to make sure new players are more likely to have a good experience. So I think a ban list is actually useful, but the idea of like dockside being legal and primetime not is just like my brain can't handle it. Like I can't understand it all. So yeah, if you want to keep primetime banned, then ban dockside. And Smothering Tithe, I think is just like it's a bad for the game to have a constant triggered ability that slows things down, makes people have to think about whether or not they need to pay the 2. It's annoying and it is super powerful. I would get rid of Tide just because it is slow and annoying.
It is absurd that Prime Time is banned and Dockside is not banned. Like, have you ever heard the Prime Time banning announcement? One of the concerns we've had recently is the overrepresentation of heavy ramp strategies to the point where this makes up a large portion of the aggregate decks out there. While we think that ramp should be good, this is Battlecruiser Magic after all, it's probably a little too prevalent and needs to be reined in a bit. With this in mind, we're banning the most egregious Fender, Primeval Titan. It's a 6-drop. It's ramp is too good. And they banned the most egregious offender, Primeval Titan. In their defense, it was 2012. This was a decade ago, and things were much different. That's simpler times, but still, how can you justify not?
Every quarter they release a banned and restricted update, which is when they should go back and be like, this prime time paragraph makes 0 sense. We should probably fix this.
Well, they also said that you've like primetime became the focus of games. People would want to copy it, steal it and all that stuff, bribery it,
maybe like reanimate it, maybe blink it.
Yeah. But a 2-mana superior primetime is it's fine. It's fine.
I definitely think Dockside should go, and I also think we need a ban list because of playing at local game stores and stuff.
That's actually a good point.
For those places, I like having a ban list, but Smothering Tithe, I'm more on the fence. Dockside's the one though. I would fully be on board with banning or unban Primetime and just let them fight it out. And I think Dockside would win by a huge margin, maybe compared to Primetime.
I should probably rephrase what I said there about bannings. It makes sense for me in this pretty unique play group that we just play every week and we know what cards not to bring. So it doesn't we don't need to ban Expropriate because we just don't play it. But now that I think about it, if I jump into a random Magic Online match and people do play Dockside, but best case they wouldn't play Dockside into whatever, blink it. So yeah, for pickup games, a ban list makes total sense, but they not with the cards that are on it. I think the worst one is Coalition Victory. This is just, why is this on there? It doesn't make any sense.
Instant speed removal doesn't exist.
Also,
what is the most powerful treasure card that should be legal then? So we said Dockside is like too far. Seth seems on the fence with Smothering Tithe. Like, where do you?
I draw the line at Plundering. Like, if we're going down our list and we're ranking them like Dockside, Smothering Tithe, discounting the new stuff from Streets of New Capenna, I'm okay with Pitiless Plunder and Stormkill, just because I feel like you got to be in specific archetypes. I'm okay with them being archetype staples. When they're ubiquitous, show up in every deck. If you're playing their colors, you should play them, like Dockside and Smothering Tithe. That's where I draw the line personally. I can see the argument for Pitiless and Stormkill because they are busted if you build the right deck around them. But for me, I think they're okay because they don't go in every deck.
Yeah, same. Like, if it's busted in a certain deck, you would have to ban a lot of cards because that's how you want to have busted cards for archetypes to make the archetype good. Yep. Yes, like, Dockside is busted in any deck. It's just...
I think the mana value of the card needs to be like 5 or 6, and then you can do whatever you want. Essentially, by 5 or 6, I've given up and assume you can make infinite mana with like your spell. So at that point, you can do what you want. Like green, like Zendikar Resurgent or something, right? Like, go ahead, whatever, right? Like, but when you can do it for 2 mana, like any of these, like Stormkill, Dockside, like that's too much. So whatever it is, just maybe Revel in Riches or something, right? Like just... At 5, 6 mana, you're good to go. You can do whatever you want. Make unlimited treasures, sack them all, recur, whatever. You deserve it.
Yeah, I think Bootlegger Stash as well is pretty fine at 6 mana.
So are you good with Bootlegger Stash then, Richard? That's been a hot topic lately.
Isn't it fine? Isn't that just like Zendikar Resurgent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can it's not even Zendikar Resurgent because it doesn't like double your mana. Like, unless you store your mana. It doesn't draw you a card when you play a creature. Like,
it's roughly
unless
like
you combo with it. Yeah,
it's some 6 mana green thing that makes unlimited mana. Like whatever, sure.
I think you're allowed to combo with cards. I think it's fine.
I think it's fine. Yeah,
I totally agree with Seth that I think Smothering Tithe and Dockside, they're ubiquitous. They go into every single deck. If you're not putting them in a deck, then you're basically depowering your deck. I think that's bad. I would chop those two, and then. Pitiless Plunder and Stormkill Artist, I'm more okay with. I think they are very busted. I think they're 2 strong cards, and if I could go back and design them, I would design them to be weaker. Like, I would just bump their mana up, like Richard said. But you know what? Like, you're not going to see them in every single deck. You don't put them in. You don't put a Pitiless Plunder in like a random black deck and just say it's going to be good because it's not. You need to be in an Aristocrats deck, and Stormkill Artist, same thing. You need to be in Spellsinger. So you know what? I'm fine with those. Provisioner 2. It's like you have to be in landfall. Like if you're just putting 1 land drop a turn, it's fine.
I don't think making Dockside cost more will fix it because you can still play it and flicker it. I think it's pretty wordy, but I think if I would fix it, you would create the difference of the artifacts you control to the artifacts your opponents control. So I guess the first one makes a lot of mana, which is still bad at 2 mana, but you can flicker it and accumulate more. So at some point you have more treasures than your opponent's artifacts, and then it's done. That would be fine. At least it doesn't go infinite. It's super wordy, but at least making it more. If it's a 5,
you don't need to flicker it most of the time.
Most of the time, what do you just make it a sorcery? You make it a sorcery and it exiles itself when it resolves.
Ooh, but not 2 mana.
I mean,
that would be
a 4 mana.
Even if it only triggers when cast, that would limit some of the combos. It doesn't get rid of all of them, but that would be a step in the right direction. Also, just triggering on only artifacts rather than artifacts and enchantments. Like even those small knobs, I don't know if it would still be busted, but it would.
Oh, I just forgot you can just sacrifice your treasures, actually, so it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense at all. I guess, my Audacity just super oversteered. Sorry for the listeners.
Okay, I know how to fix treasures. You lose 2 life when you sack a treasure.
Ooh.
But Death Shadow, Richard. Look at the Death Shadow players.
This works so well for
even more
Phyrexian mana. It works even better in a 40 life format.
Actually, 2 is not enough. You probably need to lose like 3 or... Because you have 40 life. You can, if you're just going to win, what does it matter, right? You can go as low as you want.
I mean, if I had to lose 3 life for every single treasure, I don't think I would play Smothering Tithe anymore.
How about the treasures enter?
But you would Dockside still.
Well, they started doing that with some creatures. Gallic Readers, the treasures enter tapped when you do it. I don't think it's enough, though, because... Yeah.
I think that's a lot better if they enter tapped.
Way better,
because you get 1 turn of sorcery speed interaction, and you can't like just combo off and blink. Like, you have to do all of that, and then they can just blow you out with like a Stony Silence.
Gallic Readers is really tapped is enough.
Yeah, that's nice.
Limited to once a turn,
and it's only once per turn. So that was like I remember Richard said once per turn.
Yeah,
tapped is also good. It's weird that is in the same set as Professional Facebreaker. Like one designer was like, treasures are too much. We're gonna make alligators. It's gonna be fair. And then the other designer's like, screw that. Professional Facebreaker. I'm gonna make all my treasures draw cards now because let's do that. Like, it's crazy.
There's also the token one, stimulus package. Like, now your treasures can be creatures. There's just so many payoffs now.
Yeah, payoffs for treasures don't make too much sense to me because they already pay for them for other spells. They don't even, I don't get it. I wish we had clues as the evergreen utility token. Oh my, and a Tireless Tracker reprint, please.
Yeah. I mean, clues do busted things, but you have to work for it. Like combos with things that take advantage of artifacts. But paying 2 to draw a card is actually like it is a drawback. Like you do have to spend the mana for it.
It might not even be good enough anymore. Maybe you should pay 1. Like stop speeding up so much. Like pay 1 to draw. Yeah.
I think you're right, but it's sad.
Yeah, I never assumed.
Right? It's like
I never thought clues were like insane, but
pay 1.
That
so
seems
cool.
that might be too aggressive.
How about pay 1 life?
Oh god!
Wow.
No, make it 2. Make it 2 life. Phyrexian mana. We're going to Phyrexia eventually, right? We could have like Phyrexian clues. Phyrexian investigate. I don't know.
I like tapped. I think tapped would fix everything.
Yeah,
without being too, like the 1 a turn can still be super abused and it's weird, but like Dockside, have all your treasures, they're tapped, so you need to take an extra turn or wait a turn cycle, and that gives everyone time to like murder you or do something about it. And then now playing your Stony Silence actually works, right? They play the Dockside, now you play the Stony Silence and you're good to go, right? So yeah, I think entering tapped will fix it.
That
Vandal
doesn't fix
Blast or
Smothering
whatever.
Tide,
Yeah, I was going to say this. Smothering Tides played super different.
Okay,
but
does it untap trigger your next upkeep or something? That's cool. Like it has the sleep effect on it.
Can only activate once per turn cycle.
Darn white getting around my stipulations.
White's too strong. We need to nerf white.
Smothering Tide maybe should have just been 1. The tax maybe should have been 1 rather than rather than 2. And then people would actually pay for it sometimes.
About it. And then you'd have to be like, well, can I pay the 1? This one you were like, no, obviously I can't pay 2. Obviously I can't pay 2. But then when you have to pay 1 and you're like, oh, well, I drew this. Now, let me figure out my turn. So I just drew this card. I need 6 mana for this, 5 mana for this. I have a draw spell. Will it draw into another? I hate that. I hate that. Just delete.
It probably would slow things down a little bit too much. That's true.
All right. Well, okay. The last honorary card. Curse of Opulence. You think this is problematic? Because I see Richard put it down here. Curse of Opulence is 1 red aura. It's a curse, and enchanted. Whenever you attack an enchanted, the enchanted player, you make a gold token. Gold token very different from treasure. It's actually power crept in a way because you don't need to tap it to activate it to make a mana. This one you just sacrifice it, so you can tap it first or whatever, and that's cool. And then if any opponent attacks the curse player, that opponent makes a gold, and you make a gold. Richard, you put it on here. Are you gonna poo-poo my favorite red card?
This is broken for first of all, it makes a treasure every turn. It's like dumb, but it's like 1 mana kill a person. Right? You slap it on someone, they die.
That's my favorite red card.
Right?
I feel like
and
that's
if it
synergized
synergized with treasure somehow, it'd be even more broken. But thank goodness they called it a gold token.
But there's a hoop. You can only get 1 per turn, and you have to attack the player.
And the good thing there's other people to attack the player, giving you more than 1 per turn.
Yeah,
isn't it? It's almost red Smothering Tide, isn't it? Once it gets in the mid game, yeah. But 1 mana,
and it removes life off someone too.
Yeah, that's what I hate about it.
Yeah, that's kind of my problem is how it just gets someone killed.
I was on a crusade for how good this card is. I'm glad it finally
good.
got its justice.
You got there.
Yeah, just because of the curse commander, the Grixis curse commander.
It's not.
But I mean, I'll take it.
What do you think about the transition to treasure from gold? Like, what the heck was that? Why couldn't they just use gold.
Maybe
I
they thought
think
it was too
just
busted
flavor.
because you don't tap it. And then they were like, okay, we fixed it. We made treasure. All right, now that we made treasures, we can power creep it a bit.
I think they just decided treasure is better flavor for like Ixalan with the whole theme of the set, so I switched it. Like I really think it's as simple as that. Isn't there a
Gold losing value
Tezzeret?
at the time or something? Are they not interchangeable?
Oh, yeah,
Like,
Tezzeret.
gold is treasure.
Isn't there a
creates
Tezzeret that
these
makes Ethereum
yeah.
cells or something?
Oh, yeah.
that
It
are
makes
like
actual Lotus Petal
also
things,
treasures. Yeah.
Bring back Ethereum cells. That will fix it.
What about that? Like, what if they switch back to gold or Ethereum cells? I
They're
guess
better,
technically,
though.
because they printed too many payoffs for treasures. Like, you can't stack your gold to professional facebreaker or whatever. It doesn't win with Revelin riches. Maybe that's where we got to go to get around the treasure payoffs.
No.
Okay, I have an idea. So we ban dockside extortionists, right? And then we make jeweled dockside extortionists. And it's the same thing. It makes gold, but it's free if you have your commander out.
Sure.
I think I saw that in the Commander Legends 2 leaks. I was looking on Reddit, and I'm pretty sure I saw that card.
Oh boy. All right. Well, so that was a doozy, but as always, I'm very interested in hearing from the viewers, you all who just listened to us. What do you think about treasures? We have obviously a very insular playgroup. This is our Commander Clash playgroup. I have other playgroups that I play with. I don't see treasure as much in those, but I do see them quite often as well, sometimes too. What about you? Do you have in your playgroups a lot of treasures? Is the treasure meta super high? What do you think about Smothering Tide, Dockside Extortionists, and other ones we kept talking about? And would you run some hate pieces? And if you already did, how did those go? Let us know in the comments section. Did we already shout out? Oh, we didn't shout out mtggoldfishmerch.com, which I'm doing right now. mtggoldfishmerch.com. Very late for the people who are still listening, all 15% of you. Go to the store and buy the beautiful merch. It will support us financially. And also like and subscribe wherever you're listening to. And if you got all the way here, thank you. You're awesome.
You know what, Tomer? We can't ban Dockside. We got to sell our treasure tokens. We have Scoop's treasure tokens. Cancel the podcast. Dockside. Everyone should play it.
We need gold tokens.
Pick up your treasure tokens at mtggoldfishmerch.com.
Abort.
Richard's going full WotC over there. Full WotC.
I understand corporate WotC now. I'm a Hasbro executive.
All right, that's our show, everybody. Until next time, friends. See ya.